And I was like, that's ridiculous. And then I was like, but these are the things, it's questions like this and arguments like this that trip up Christians.
I'm Todd, and I was naughty. I did everything wrong. I got kicked out of art school, I drank heavily, and I looked to other religions and versions of spirituality to get fulfilled. The problem was, I was in the occult and I didn't even know it. My life was a wreck, and I had to learn what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus.
And I'm Laura. I was super nice. I did everything right. I got saved young, went to Moody Bible Institute, got married, and followed the Christian rules to having a good life. Problem was, that formula didn't work. I had to change how I related with Jesus.
At the end of the day, what I learned is the very simple truth. Jesus is the answer, and the only one that will ever actually fulfill you.
Naughty
versus
nice.
And welcome back to Naughty versus Nice. Of course, I am Todd.
Wow.
I know.
So can you?
Do you like that?
I don't know how to say my name like that.
Kelly.
Okay.
I can't do it.
So we're doing a kind of like, I guess, a supplemental kind of thing. We'll do like a little mini episode. One of the things, not just doing the regular show, but we want to offer more. And one of the things, after I've been getting kicked off of Reddit over and over again, really saw a need to try to help people out, answer questions as best to our ability. And so each week we want to take some questions from Reddit that are real regular people, not necessarily listeners, hint, hint, and try to help them out, try to answer some questions, because it's sort of like the cultural zeitgeist. What's going on with new Christians, old Christians, young Christians? Where are they at, and what are the things that are on their mind?
Awesome. So we just did the episode about Mary and the Queen of Heaven. So I had scoured the Reddits, as you say, looking for questions. What was interesting to me is we answered so many in that episode. It was actually hard for me to find stuff. So
Yeah.
Good for us then,
Yeah.
huh? I guess.
yeah,
Gold stars.
You covered a lot. Or what I guess I didn't realize until I started really looking for questions is how many people wanted those things answered, because I saw the same questions over and over and over again. And it was like, oh, we answered that. We answered that. We answered that. So if you have questions about Mary, that's where to go. All right. First one, question about Mary's role as Jesus's mother. So I was talking to my wife, and I realized through all my years in Catholic education, church, time with my Baptist in-laws, and in self-study, I have never seen or heard it explained if Mary was the biological mother of Jesus. Another way to put it, was the conception of Jesus with one of Mary's eggs, or was the entire pregnancy from God? And would that make Mary more of a surrogate? Any opinions or references would be helpful. I really can't believe I haven't thought of this before.
I think it has to be her egg in order for it to be flesh. That's my opinion. Quick
in
answer.
order to go back to the genetics of David and be the son of David, and from that
line.
Yeah, that line. And that would be what fulfills prophecy. It's not that he had to genetically be from David for some sort of other reason other than it shows and proves he is the Messiah.
And in addition, part of the prophecy would be that they would know who he was. He would be a man of the Spirit. And so you'll see that in his ministry, obviously, the presence of the Spirit at his baptism, the Spirit driving him to the wilderness, all of that, but also for lack of a better way to put it, in a very DNA way, the Spirit is present in his creation. He is born of the Spirit, and yet at the same time you have to have the Mary component or it doesn't meet both the standards.
One of the things I think is interesting, I don't know if this is true or not. This is all speculation, but at a certain point, way back in the Old Testament, God ends up saying something to the effect of sin is passed down through the father. So, and I'll visit it on the third and fourth generation, something to that effect. But it always stood out to me. I always thought that was weird. It was like, why is there a component? There's a genetic component to sin would be a way to think of it. I'm not saying that's 100% correct, but the idea that sin is passed down from the father and then visited upon the third and fourth generation down. So the idea that Mary has to be the one that carries him, that brings him into the world, births him, and the father can't be Joseph. If he's to be born sinless, it has to be God through the Spirit that that union occurs, however that was done. It was one of those things where that just made sense to me. It's like, well, how can, if everybody's born in, of sin into sin, how can Jesus not be? That would be an explanation. I'm not saying it's correct, but that's just always the way that I've understood it.
Well, and it's because also, Adam is held accountable for the choice. And so that part of the equation is the progenitor of the sin, I guess, that kind of an idea. That's how I always saw it. Obviously, from the beginning of time, the whole process of how we were created as a woman to carry a child and a man and all these different things, it all falls into line. It wasn't like he created that and was like, oh, wait, I know a way to make this work now. It all serves the purpose that he already had. But I do think that it's tied to it coming through Adam.
There we go.
Okay. So whenever we do the questions, I always do 2 about whatever subject we've recently covered and then 1 cultural or relational question. So the next one is more of a cultural question. It is very outside the box. It was an argument given. So I will read it and explain the image that comes with it. Okay.
I'm nervous.
Because I want to know how to counter this. Because this is what's out in the world. These are the conversations that are being had.
Okay, this is somebody was posing an idea and opening it up to discussion, or somebody was asking a question about an idea?
No, somebody put this out there like, this is my argument.
Oh,
See
okay.
how witty and funny it is
Right.
and stuff. And I pulled and I read it, and honestly I was like, that's...
You read it on Reddit?
I read it on Reddit. And I was like, that's ridiculous. And then I was like, but these are the things, it's questions like this and arguments like this that trip up Christians.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to pull it and see what you 2 have to say about it.
Okay.
All right. You see, because Eve was made from Adam's rib, her DNA was mainly male. However, she is referred to as the first woman. Similarly, Jesus' DNA came from his mother Mary, meaning his DNA was female, but he is known as the Son of God. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And it's followed by an image, and it said, LGBTQ phobic Christians telling me it's against the Bible to be trans. Me, a trans Christian, explaining how Eve and Jesus were technically trans.
Well, I don't. So he creates her from his rib, but it doesn't say that, like, there's no other part that's poured in. I don't know. To me, I don't think that is a determiner of DNA, but I'm not a scientist. I would say, looking at the creation story, for what I think it was, and this is my phrase, no one's ever said this, so it could be wrong, that the creation story is prophecy, and you see that the way in which he creates Adam, and then he creates Eve, and then even the instruction he gives that the man should leave his family. I don't know if anyone ever notices the woman isn't to leave her family in that statement. I think there's a couple of indicators in there that the creation of Eve from Adam is foretelling how God will create the bride of Christ from the body, from the sacrifice of Christ's body. And so there's those themes that are already baked in from the onset, well before the fall happens. So these ideas seem a little ridiculous to me when you're starting to look at those bigger themes, and then all of a sudden, and the encompassing testimony of Scripture about the male-female relationship and how it's designed to symbolize and embody ideas of Christ in the church, that this seems like kind of a silly argument. I'm not trying to be mean. It just doesn't seem to hold a lot of weight next to those things.
I agree with you. It hit me and it was like, come on. But this is what would trip up a lot of Christians. If somebody said these things to them and they'd be like, well, that's not what I meant, and there would be no way to logic their way out of it or talk about it. I like the idea of against the bigger picture, it doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. And I'm learning more and more to see where we are wrong in our own thinking or understanding in the small bits. We really have to compare it to that overarching picture.
It's similar to me, like when people will say, well, where did Cain's wife come from? Those that's not the purpose of the story. It was, I think people are picturing that someone's standing right there at creation and all these events, right? This is Moses writing these things beyond his lifetime they happened. He's being inspired by the Lord to write them to an audience that was culturally interpreting them a certain way. Nobody was hearing that and going, oh, well, the rib was probably to signify that she would have male DNA. It doesn't fit. It's as ridiculous as trying to say, wasting time focusing on why is it not told how Cain got his wife. That's not the point.
Genesis is not a science book. So how about the first way, there's multiple different ways or comments to make regarding something like this. The hard way is what kind of ties into what you were just saying. The Bible was written for, and Genesis was written for people that already knew God existed, already believed it. It didn't matter, quote unquote, how Adam technically, scientifically got there. Adam got there because he was formed out of the ground by God's hand itself. There's a symbolic significance that goes around with that. God didn't slap Adam together. He crafted him gently, carefully, lovingly, thought out. There's a whole bunch of significance that goes with that. The idea of Eve then coming from that first creation, a part of his side, an important part. It's not his pinky finger. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's part of the torso, part of the mechanism of man itself. It's putting woman on par with significance and importance to man, symbolically. Okay. Now, but it wasn't a science book. So the first way that you can just refute all of this is say, Eve coming from Adam's rib is just a symbol. So there's no genetic component. It's a poetic story about creation that everyone understood symbolically. Okay, that just wiped out the argument. Because now there's no actual genetics, there's no actual this, whatever the person was saying. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Now, whether I happen to believe it's all literal also. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, though, if it's literal or not. My faith isn't based on that. So right there, it's not a good argument to begin with. Now, the second point with that is this. There is a religious concept, once again, everything goes back to the devil, it's all about the occult, that has the idea of blending masculine and feminine together to create a super being that is evident in the concept of the Eliphas Levi, if that's the way you pronounce his name, it's the way I've always pronounced it, the French occultist who drew the first depiction of Baphomet, the goat-headed demon deity, the night and the day, the masculine and the feminine, the solvet et coagula. This figure represents this dualistic system and the union of the opposites through the middle path. So what this person is talking about is they're saying, so you mean to tell me there's no origin of occult concepts in Christianity like I can clearly find in not only the first man and woman, but also Jesus himself? My answer would be no. There is no Baphomet, occult, satanic union of the opposites through the middle path in the personage of Jesus. That's just wrong. All the way around, it's wrong. It's so wrong, I'm going to go back to my vegan thing. It's like saying I am the greatest vegan that's ever lived. I had the best steak ever for lunch. And people say, you can't eat steak and be a vegan. Of course I can. I just told you I'm vegan. And they're like, yeah, but your behavior and everything you do doesn't support that. No, it does. And we know it does because I told you I'm vegan. It doesn't work. And so what they're talking about, the temptation is to try to make some sort of genetics argument, try to make some sort of physical argument, try to talk about it on par within the framing of what the context of what the person said. But your response, my response, the framing's invalid. The framing doesn't work. There are 9 different ways from Sunday in which the framing doesn't work. So it's not that it's a bad question. The church needs to discuss this issue and talk about it and not stop acting like it doesn't exist. Once again, these people that get harmed by this system and this thing, who do you think they're going to go to when they figure out the world's betrayed them? They're going to go to the people that claim to have all the answers. And if your solution is to act like this doesn't exist and these people don't exist and they're not being, harmed by all this stuff and, they're sinners, so, the heck with them, then you get questions like this, and nobody can even address the issue. Nobody can even talk about it, at least coherently. If I even did just that, there's a good chance I didn't. So,
any rebuttal, Laura?
No, I thought that was good.
Okay.
Good job, Todd.
I'm just going to
Yay, me!
I'm
Wasn't
just
that
going to
good.
reiterate that you guys had answered all the questions on Mary that I was able to find before I say this last
oh my
one.
gosh.
Oh,
Why
man,
is this
what-
bad?
I know, right? Dream Crushers is definitely.
You enjoy this way too much. I have secret questions.
Her eyes are smiling right now. Yeah, her eyes are smiling.
What can I
All
do?
right. If Mary is the mother of Jesus and Jesus is the Lamb of God, does that mean Mary had a little lamb?
Okay.
I actually saw that coming.
I was like, really? That's it? Okay. I was all prepared for a really hard question. No.
No, that's all we got. Literally, I mean, seriously, I read dozens and dozens of questions on Mary, and you guys answered them over and over and over again in that episode. So I was like, okay, let's see what I have to work with here.
This is a really super small bonus episode
Yes.
then. Did you expect we'd fill more time with our answers?
No, this is a mini.
Okay, a mini.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mini.
There was part of me, I was waiting for her to start doing that finger thing where she's like, wrap it up, buddy. You're already on 4 minutes of your monologue. The only one that monologues more than me is like a James Bond villain, I swear. Sometimes. That's how I feel, man. Yeah.
You are a fan of the monologues.
Sometimes I'm trying to figure out what to say as I'm saying it, and they don't always match up. Sometimes my mouth gets a little ahead of the brain. You know what I mean?
I don't think so.
And then I stumble and fumble, you know.
All right, that's it for our little mini episode. Thank you again for listening. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to send them to us at our Gmail account, naughtyversusnice@gmail.com. It's naughty, VERSUS nice @gmail.com. You can also find some extra commentary and merch and whatever fun stuff at buymeacoffee.com/naughtyversusnice. Feel free to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And give us a like and share and comment if you like. Have a good day. Thanks.